Um, Gentlemen, we have a Ryder Cup update. We cannot go a day without getting some news, whether it is the European team being finalized or Brooks Koepka donning the cover of Golf Digest and gives a very candid interview, I guess is one way to put it. Kyle, we'll just start here with you. You tweeted out a couple of really interesting snippets of this interview here, and I'll just read a couple of lines. Essentially, he gets asked about his normal schedule and how does that mesh with his Ryder Cup experience. Brooks Koepka in response says, quote, "It's different. It's hectic. It's a bit odd, if I'm honest. I don't want to say it's a bad week. We're just so individualized, and everyone has their routine and a different way of doing things. And now it's like, okay, we have to have a meeting at this time or go do this or go do that. It's the opposite of what happens during a major week." Now, there is another quote, but let's pause there. Brooks Koepka, not necessarily the biggest fan of the team aspect, it appears.
Well, honestly, the thing that I got so much to say on this, the thing that stands out there is he says, "I don't want to say it's a bad week," which means that you actually do want to say that, which is like, it's like the best week. And you juxtapose this with everything you hear from the Euro side, right? I mean, think about the quotes we got from Ian Poulter and Sergio and Shane Lowry and all these guys that were captain's picks on Sunday night. And it's like, oh, this is what I like grew up. Like, I can't wait. Yeah, it's a taxing week and it's hard and there are things that are different and abnormal, but it's like the best week, the best time. And this is just, it's just such a, we can get to the other quote, but it's kind of self-defeating. It just, you're kind of going into it like putting yourself behind the 8 ball, and it's just so unnecessary. Just, you have to, and I think this is where, I said this on our last podcast, Bryson is a problem. I think Brooks is the problem because he's so unwilling to be vulnerable, to get outside of his normal self, that has had a lot of, I mean, obviously he's had a ton of success at major championships over the course of his career, but this is a very different thing. And you have to be willing to honestly, like, just have some humility to be part of a team and to be vulnerable enough to be like, hey, I know I'm like the cool guy or whatever I'm trying to be, but for this week, I'm all in on the team. And that's what you see the Euros do. And I think that's one of the 100 reasons they've had a ton of success over the years.
I find it incredibly interesting, Greg, that he did compare this to a major championship week, which is just further confirmation that Brooks Koepka, no matter what else it is, Ryder Cup, a WGC, what, it doesn't matter. He is singularly focused on majors. He's comparing the Ryder Cup to what normally goes on during a major championship week. I thought that was kind of a fascinating kind of throwaway line that gives us a glimpse into what literally his number one priority is.
Yeah, and I would say there are a lot of people, I understand where he's coming from with that, because there are a lot of people that consider this to be one of the best sporting events in all of the world. And so is it a better week for a viewing experience than majors? Some people feel that way. It's up there in that category as one of our marquee events in the game of golf. But Kyle brings up what the Euros do. And I think of a Sergio Garcia, an Ian Poulter. I would include Jon Rahm in this, not Rory McIlroy. But these guys look at the Ryder Cup as their marquee event. This is the event that they covet the most. And it seems to be the European team, there are players who would rather win in the Ryder Cup than win a major, right? This is their priority. And the way Brooks Koepka classifies greatness, classifies success in his career, classifies himself as being the best player he can be, which he said a number of times in this article, which was just one of my favorite reads. It was fascinating. One of my most entertaining reads of the year was this article. But he looks at greatness and he compares it to what Tiger's doing, what Jack has done, and it's majors. And Ian Poulter and Sergio Garcia are so proud of their Ryder Cup record. And Americans aren't like, they're just not like that. So Brooks has a drive, which was very evident in this to me. He has a drive to be a great. He wants to be great. He wants to be like a Kobe Bryant of the game of golf. And I'm not sure he feels that the Ryder Cup gets him any closer to that. I mean, remember the quote Tiger said, I can think of a million reasons why this isn't that important to me. There's something along those lines. The only thing I really remember is I can give you a million reasons why. And it was a kind of a negative comment on the Ryder Cup. I would bet that sticks with Brooks. I would bet you that's something that he knows, that resonates with him. So unfortunately, it kind of highlights the problem that the USA has had in the past 10 years.
I was going to say it's emblematic of like I think the primary reason the US hasn't had a lot of success is they don't really trust one another, and they don't trust the guy, whoever the captain is. There's not as much trust on the US side as the European side, and that doesn't sound like it's like whatever, man, just go shoot a 65. Which, yes, go shoot a 65. But when you don't trust one another, it creates a lot of mental clutter, right? You start thinking about a bunch of different stuff. And am I going to have to answer questions about Brooks in this press con? There's just a bunch of stuff going on that doesn't need to be going on when you have that trust. And I think that it makes the US play worse. It makes them play below where their talent level is. So I think this is really emblematic of that bigger problem.
Here's the second quote, which Mark, I think, does speak to the team/individual side of Brooks Koepka's mind here. So he kind of gets continued to be pressed on, what are you concerned about at the Ryder Cup? You only have to look after yourself at a major championship. And Brooks Koepka says, quote, "It's tough. There are times when I'm like, I won my match. I did my job. What do you want from me? I know how to take responsibility for the shots I hit every week. Now somebody else hit a bad shot and left me in a bad spot. And I know this hole is a loss. That's new. And you have to change the way you think about things. You go from an individual sport all the time to a team sport 1 week a year." And he finishes, Mark, by saying, quote, "It's so far from my normal routine," end quote.
You're not surprised that Brooks said this stuff, are you? I mean, that's how I want to start.
No.
And I'm also, I didn't read the entire article. I caught bits of it, because it was largely making my blood boil a little bit. And I'm sure that Captain Stricker and his crew are feeling kind of the same way right now, that this thing would be released at this time when we are just, mere days away from what's a pretty big event. But I found that curious because Brooks never hits a bad shot on a partner. He's like, yeah, I won my match, or I had a good shot. Now it's you because you played alternate shot with me that's hit the crap. No, that's just not going to endear yourself very much to people in the locker room. But it's like I've been saying all along with the whole Bryson debacle, with Brooks as well, to a certain extent with Reed, which has been mitigated because he's not on the team. You just kind of know what you're going to get. And I think a lot of the guys in the locker room know what they're going to get. And now the challenge is, because I'm going to look beyond this, the captain and all of his crew and the team needs to look beyond this too. The only people that are benefiting out of this is the fans, because they got to laugh, and the Europeans who are like, God, this is some bulletin board material for us. Where everyone now on the US squad's got to move ahead a little bit. And now they're going to start to go, okay, who do we pair this guy with? Because he is essentially just shot a big dagger at 11 of his teammates there and said, yeah, well, I'm going to be perfect. It's you scrubs that are going to let me down. So as a person who has high respect for Brooks and for anyone who plays the game at that level, and you talk about being a great, 4 majors, he's a great already. There are not many more folks in the game that have more than 4 majors. Let's just be real, okay? Out of all the folks that have ever played this game for a living. So he's great, he's bordering on greatness. But you don't say this stuff even if you feel it. And perhaps, like we've advised Bryson and a few other professionals in the past, you are a professional golfer. Pay attention to the word professional, not just a golfer. And a professional handles himself properly in front of the media, in front of whoever. Jordan, those sorts of guys, they did that. Tiger made 1 or 2 mistakes when he was young, but he never made them again. Speaking wise, now he did some other stuff, but I was just disappointed at this, and I'm disappointed for the Americans because I'm friendly with a whole bunch of the European guys, but I really want the Americans to win this year, and this has just not done them any favors. To Kyle's observations.
Yeah, I think Mark makes a great point about like Brooks matters. Like, right, he has 4 majors. Like that is significant. And I think he like I don't know. I go back and forth. I think he could matter in the team room if he really took that on. Like if it I mean, again, like 4 majors among players is a freaking big deal. And if you start saying stuff, and everybody knows that, if you start saying stuff, I think it carries some weight. Now, I do think that the U.S. has the benefit that I don't think matters the most in that room. I think JT, I think Spieth, I think there are other guys that matter more. And listen, like I've been really big on the Tiger and Phil generation not caring about the Ryder Cup, especially like the quote that Greg mentioned earlier with Tiger. I think because those guys were they mattered the most in the room always, like for as long as they were on the team, that really, I think, negatively affected the U.S. side for a number of years. And I think the turnover to JT and Spieth and those guys as the leaders, I think that will really benefit the U.S. because I think those guys really do care about the Ryder Cup. And so I think if Brooks was like the guy, this would be catastrophic for the U.S. team. But I think there are other guys that you can kind of look to as the guys that Brooks is a little bit mitigated by how many big personalities the U.S. side has.
I hear you. I want to say that Brooks is a big personality. He really is in the locker room, in the players' lounge, on the golf course. He is. He's a big personality now in the media too, and he's making his persona a little greater with all of these shenanigans that have been going on. Um, I'm keen to see how the team deals with this because, from my point of view, personally, all this has done is ruin my bet against Kyle because now there's no chance that this boy is playing all 5 matches. I guarantee you, if Stricker's got any Bill Belichick in him, he's going to go. You keep your rear end on the bench once or twice here, and you'll quickly realize how you're going to play for the red, white, and blue, and not for you. And that's a big deal here. So it's just it's a horrible situation.
In a world, Greg, where we normally get processed responses that have been run through PR and through agents and managers, should we just be applauding Brooks Koepka for telling us exactly how he feels?
I understand where the question comes from here, right? But this is the problem that I have with Brooks, who I love. And there's so much in this article that I really loved and I think is great, especially for golfers to learn from as a coach. The stuff about him growing from it is being a hothead and learning how to improve and how to keep his cool and, not break the leg of his bags and like he did when he was in college, taking stuff from it's a great story. And what he does is really admirable. Yet at the same time, he contradicts himself constantly. And it bothers me. So he says, I'm so competitive. If I'm playing ping pong, I want to embarrass you. I want to ruin you. Yet it doesn't feel like he has that competitive drive when he goes to a PGA Tour event. And it definitely didn't seem like he has a competitive drive to beat the Europeans in the Ryder Cup. It feels like this week's just a lot. And I can't focus on what I can't focus on what I'm doing. Tiger said, I don't get paid for this. I get paid for a regular event. That's a little bit different than, okay, this is just too much for me. But if we play ping pong, I want to embarrass you. It's so intense. It burns. It like the language he uses is so strong and it's captivating and I love it. But then he says other things that contradict it. And it makes me feel like he's, I don't know. It perplexes me. I don't know how to handle it.
That's a very good take there. And look, I've been around President's Cups a little bit, and I've been at the Ryder Cup. I've never been part of the team mix, but these weeks are grueling because there's a lot of functions. There's black tie deals. There's ceremonies. There's dinners. So it does get you out of your routine. So I will concede that to Brooks and say, I hear what you're saying. I really do. But I don't see the point. This is not lifting anybody up. It's right. It's true. It's just not building anybody up right now. And perhaps just don't say that sort of stuff in articles like this. maybe just for the greater good, perhaps.
Last thing, Greg. I think Greg is right about Tiger and Brooks are saying different things, but I think it stems from the same point, which is like I'm above this. I'm bigger than this. I'm more important than kind of the task at hand. And the thing that's really frustrating about Koepka is that, like, and I said it earlier, like he could be like such a great leader for the US team. Like, hey, you got, like, get on my back. I'll carry us. And if we lose, put the blame on me, right? Not like, oh, so-and-so hit a ball behind a tree. What could I do? Like there's just such a capacity there. Like Greg was saying, for just that intensity at a Ryder Cup and that leadership that we could see, that he just seems so unwilling to engage in. And honestly, like some of the quotes later on where he was talking about, oh, I don't get a nap and I can't unwind by watching SportsCenter. It's like, that is, what does he always talk about? Being like, guys are too mentally soft, right? I already have my advantage when I get to a major championship. That's as soft as it gets. I'm sorry. Like, that's really soft. It's really soft. And it's kind of turning around, like everything that he always says about everybody else. He kind of turned it around on himself, unintentionally so, by saying that. So we could talk about this for an hour, but that's kind of what, those are kind of my points about the Brooks situation.
Yeah, we'll put a pin in it there. Obviously, this has been your daily Ryder Cup update. I imagine there is going to be plenty more in the future.